A few years ago, I was simply doing my thing as a realtor, focused on closing deals and going through the motions of everyday life. Little did I know, a simple day at work would unknowingly bind me to one of the most life-shattering revelations I could ever imagine. It all happened before the pandemic took over the world, back when I was still working from an office, making my way through real estate transactions. One day a man walked in, quiet, unassuming, the kind of guy you'd barely notice if you weren't paying attention. He seemed like an alright person, someone you wouldn't think twice about. He asked me to help him find a studio apartment, and we quickly hit it off. We scoured listings together, and eventually found him the perfect place. I even managed to secure a decent discount for him, wrapping up the deal feeling satisfied. I thought that would be the end of it. Another deal, another satisfied client. But earlier this year, an acquaintance of mine casually mentioned something that made my stomach churn. He told me he had seen my wife with a man at that same apartment complex, walking out together, arm in arm. They had even returned later, carrying bags of groceries. At first, I brushed it off. There was no way, I thought. She's always at work. How could she be in two places at once? But as I let the thought linger, I started remembering things that didn't add up. During the pandemic, she had told me that her office was switching to a closed mode, working remotely to keep things running smoothly. Yet, as the months went by, she kept insisting that she was working just like usual the entire time. It was odd. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I did something I'd never done before. I called her office. I managed to track down the number somehow, and when I got through, the person on the other end was surprisingly friendly. But the information they gave me was enough to turn my world upside down. The office had closed down during the pandemic. The company had gone bankrupt, and all the employees, including my wife, had been laid off over a year ago. I was floored. The rug was being pulled from under me, and I didn't know how to react. That evening, when my wife came home, I decided to confront her. I told her what I had found out, expecting her to deny it or try to cover it up. But her response was calm, almost indifferent. Without a hint of regret, she confirmed everything. She had been seeing this man for over a year. I couldn't believe it. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding, but I kept my cool for the sake of our son. I didn't want to tear everything apart, not just yet. I asked her, trying to control the surge of emotions bubbling inside me. So let me get this straight. You haven't worked for over a year. You've been living with this guy, leaving every morning at 8 o'clock pretending to go to work, then coming back at 9 o'clock, and you just act like everything is perfectly normal? Her response, as calm as ever, threw me off completely. She raised an eyebrow and simply asked, "What's changed in the house since then?" It took me a moment to process her question, and when I did, I realized the painful truth. The house was still running smoothly. Dinner was still on the table every night. The groceries were always stocked. She still spent time with our son and me in the evenings. But none of that could change the fact that the person I had loved, trusted, and built a life with was living a completely different reality behind my back. Her voice was nonchalant when she spoke again. "I'm working," she said. "Just for a different company. They helped me find something better. I've been managing the budget around here, spending what's left as I please." I was drained emotionally and mentally, and I needed a way to release everything I had been holding inside. But she was still going through the motions, keeping her role as the wife and mother intact. She still slept in our bed every night, as though everything was just fine. "I got bored with you, honestly," she confessed bluntly, a stark honesty that left me speechless. "But I've kept my role as wife and mother for our son. I still sleep here every night, so there's no need for reproaches." With that, she stood up resolute, her stance unshakable, and walked out of the room as though nothing had changed. I sat there in disbelief, the weight of her words sinking in, but my mind couldn't fully grasp the gravity of it all. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me, leaving me suspended in shock. I couldn't just let it go. "No, this isn't going to work," I said, catching up with her as she tried to leave. "Not even for the kid. I can't live like this, knowing you're with someone else, pretending like everything's fine when it's clearly not. And my friends, they know now. They're going to look at me differently." She didn't say anything, But the silence between us felt suffocating. Hours passed, each one more unbearable than the last, as we talked it through, the inevitable conclusion hanging in the air. Divorce. We agreed that our son would stay with her, and I would pack my things and leave. The plan was simple. We would tell him that we had a fight, that I'd be living separately for a while, and then later figure out what to say about the real reason behind it all. I never imagined how quickly things would start to unravel. The responsibilities I had been shouldering, the ones that had kept our household running smoothly while she worked, now fell squarely on her shoulders. It didn't take long before our son started to open up. He would tell me how overwhelmed she seemed, how stressed she was from trying to balance everything. She was home all the time now, but it was clear she wasn't managing her time well. It only got worse. And then there was the lover. He had practically vanished from the scene. Their meetings had become so infrequent that it was obvious he had lost interest. That's when our son started asking to live with me. He said I had always been the one who could handle everything, that I knew his routine, that I was the one who could give him the stability he needed. It was a heartbreaking truth, but the day came when he moved in with me, and that was that. As for my ex, her mess had only just begun. She had taken out a massive loan, using it to buy an apartment for her lover, something I had no idea about until much later. It was a decision that seemed to haunt her. In the end, it felt like karma had come full circle, catching up with her in ways she hadn't anticipated. And for me, well, it was the start of rebuilding piece by painful piece.